The 12th ranked Clemson Tigers traveled to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Tech Yellowjackets. This game will be 12 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Clemson is a 3.5-point favorite. This is more than just the beginning of the ACC conference play. There is so much at stake in this game for both Georgia Tech, who have circled this year as a potential breakthrough, and for Clemson to kind of get back on track. For Georgia Tech, man, this is a golden opportunity to shatter a 9-game losing streak to the Clemson Tigers, a streak that started back in 2014. And this, I think, in victory for Georgia Tech, would kind of formally announce their arrival as a legitimate ACC contender. And for Clemson, a team that was ranked in the top 5 coming into the season, I thought they had a chance to be the best team in the country. I had them number 1 in my preseason poll based on returning production. A 1-2 start would pretty much end any college football playoff expectations before they ever truly began. We all know who the coaching staffs are, all right? Clemson is Dabo Swinney, been around for a long time. If you need to know his story, then I probably can't help you. he's the architect and the guy that really leans on culture and things of that nature. As far as Georgia Tech is concerned, it's Brent Key, is a physical, versatile rushing attack that amassed 320 rushing yards against Colorado, another 223 against Gardner-Webb. Their entire foundation is kind of built on their offensive line and the strength of their entire team. So as far as the quarterback matchup is concerned, it pits Clemson's Cade Klubnik, who so far here in the first couple of weeks, man, the statistical output has been, for the most part, pedestrian, especially with a guy that came into the season as one of the preseason Heisman Trophy favorites. He's accumulated 426 passing yards, a couple touchdowns, a couple interceptions. Did have a costly pick 6 against Troy that contributed to that 16-point deficit that they had there in the first half. What's more concerning is what made him a little different last year was how effective he was with his legs. He so far has not been very productive running the football, just -3 rushing yards so far this season. That's a huge difference. Last year he went for over 450 and 7 touchdowns. So he's got to kind of figure things out with the run game as well. He's struggled under pressure so far. But in the last game, in the last half of the last game, he completed 7 of 8 for 99 and a couple touchdowns to lead that comeback against Troy. So maybe that was kind of the spark that now has lit the flame for the Clemson Tigers. On the other side, it's Georgia Tech's Haynes King, who did miss last week, by the way. So when I go through some of these updates, I'm going to operate under the assumption that Haynes King will play. He's a dual threat weapon. He is the heart and soul of this Georgia Tech team. He can stress you not just with his arm, but also with his legs. That was on display against Colorado, went for 156 and 3 touchdowns. He's been nursing a, quote, lower body injury that led to Brent Key holding him out of that Gardner-Webb game. They say that that was precautionary, and while they're going to assess him in practice this week, we'll need to watch whether or not his mobility with that lower body injury has been affected. So if for whatever reason he's at way less than 100%, they could potentially turn to redshirt freshman Aaron Philo, who in his first career start last week had a historically great performance. He was 21 of 28, went for 373 and a touchdown. That was a school record for passing yards in a debut. Couple early turnovers, but Philo, I thought, showed some poise and led the offense to nearly 700 yards in total offense. So pretty good. Here's the questions that will determine the outcome. Question 1, can Georgia Tech's offensive line maul Clemson's star-studded front? The undisputed strength of Clemson's roster is along the defensive line. A couple of potential first-round picks in defensive tackle Peter Woods, defensive end TJ Parker, and Georgia Tech's offensive line, they're the group that really will allow this charge to kind of take place. They premier one of the better guard duos in the entire ACC in Joe Fusel and Keelan Rutledge. They're really good at paving the way for a ground attack that can feature not just quarterback run, but also some of the read stuff that we've seen with success in the past. That group was instrumental against Colorado a few weeks ago. Question 2, who wins the coaching chess match between Tom Allen, that's Clemson's defensive coordinator, and Buster Faulkner, who is Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator? This Clemson defense under Tom Allen has shown a little bit of vulnerability against LSU's rushing attack. You look at the numbers, they're not going to necessarily blow you away, but there were a couple of cutback lanes that were exposed from time to time, over pursuit in a couple spots, where I think that could be somewhat problematic against a Georgia Tech offense that is all about putting a lot of stress on linebackers, about a lot of creating confusion, a lot of pre-snap motions, and a really diverse run scheme. You also look at Georgia Tech's rushing attack. Jamal Haynes, who's amazing, went for nearly 1,000 last year. They also now have a 1-2 punch with the addition of Malachi Hosley, who went for over 102 touchdowns against Gardner-Webb. So they have more depth there than you realize. So now 3 Georgia Tech players have rushed for over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns in the first couple games. Haynes, King, Jamal Haynes, and Malachi Hosley. So Yellowjackets and Navy, by the way, the only FBS teams with 3 such players this season. Question 3, can Clemson's offensive line regroup? Now, their offensive line, I think, so far for Clemson has been a bit of a liability. I don't think they played well against LSU. I don't think they played well against Troy. You also have left tackle Tristan Lee, who has been seen in a walking boot, didn't play against Troy. That's a guy that you have to absolutely keep an eye on. If he's at less than 100%, that could have an impact on Clemson's offensive line as a whole. As far as Georgia Tech's defensive line, not nearly as star-studded as Clemson's, naturally, but their defensive front has been pretty disruptive. They have 6 sacks and 14 tackles for loss against Gardner-Webb last week. I know it's Gardner-Webb, but still, that's productive regardless of who you're playing against. If the Yellowjackets can consistently apply pressure to Cade Klubnik, then that can exploit some of the tendencies that we've seen the last couple of weeks where Cade Klubnik, when he feels the heat and the protection breaks down, it can force to inaccurate throws and bad decisions made by the veteran quarterback. Question number 4. Can Clemson's offense find some rhythm? If you look at Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, we know it's a variation of the air raid offense, which is really simple, but really hasn't had a lot of an identity here these first couple of weeks. They did make some nice tweaks against Troy and adjusted their run scheme a little bit, which allowed Adam Randall, their converted wide receiver to running back, to be a little bit more effective, but they're going to need to be a little bit better against a better defense this upcoming weekend. You also have sophomore receiver Brian Wesco, who I think showed some massive progress in week 2. But so far, Clemson is not holding the ball for very long. They are 116th nationally in time of possession and held the ball for just 22 minutes and 50 seconds against LSU. That puts a lot of pressure on the defense, which has been on the field for a lot. And if that group wears down against a really physical Georgia Tech team that wants to control the clock with their run game, that could be a fatal flaw. Betting trends in this game. Georgia Tech is 11-10 outright and 15-6 against the spread as an underdog against under Brent Key. They are 3-1 outright and 4-0 against the spread as a home underdog against Brett Key. This game is being played in Atlanta, and while it feels so trendy, I'm taking Georgia Tech. I'm assuming Haynes King is healthy. I'm assuming their run game can control the clock. And right now, what I've seen from Clemson's offense is not inspiring. I think Georgia Tech wins this game this weekend in what should be a statement win, a landmark victory for Brent Key.